All right, these ones are fun. We're going to do glaze, dry brush, and add salt. And with glaze, it's easier if you can take some of your highly pigmented paint, whether it's from the tube or the pan, some more water, and really thin it out on your palette paper. So even this is too thick, too highly pigmented. So I'm adding more and more water until I get a really thin color. You can always check out how thin your color is by wiping it on a paper towel and seeing how thin it is that way. Now I'm just going to rinse my brush out because I want to get rid of that extra pigment, dry it off, and just pick up the paint that's on my palette and glaze it over the surface. You can see that this looks different here than how it came across up here where I just painted the straight color. A glaze is a thin layer, and the less pressure you put on your paintbrush, you might be able to get an even thinner layer than that. You can build up more layers on this to make your glaze more definite and turn it more green or more blue the more layers you built up. Think about it as how you blended with colored pencil and building up more layers that way, or how you blended with graphite and building up more layers to make something darker. Dry brush is kind of opposite, and I really do like working with the round brush here. And I am going to pick up some pigment and then just dry the tip of my brush off and then paint in here very lightly. And I'm going to work in a scumbling pattern just so that you can see kind of how this builds in. This is a really great technique for clouds or anything that's kind of fluffy. You can also use this technique to get in really light stippling. But you have to be careful with this technique. You don't want a lot of paint on your brush, and you want your brush to be mostly dry. That's why it's called dry brush. Add salt is one that you're going to need to act quickly. So I am going to take my container, put some salt in a container, or you can put it in your hand. I'm going to make sure that my paint is really nice and wet. Rinse my paintbrush, dry it off. I'm going to put some salt in my hand. I'm going to take my blue, paint it quickly on the surface of this yellow, and then sprinkle salt on top of it. This is one that you're going to need to let sit. So don't move it. Don't remove the salt until the paint is fully dry, because what's happening right here is the salt is pulling water up into it, which also concentrates that pigment right underneath the salt. So you're going to get a different variation of color around that salt. But it has to be done while your paint is wet. I'll show you one more glaze. Okay, so adding another layer on that really helps create that darker value. Okay, so the next video will be lifting and variegated wash.